Today's November 21st, 2017. First, we're going to call the meeting to order, and we'll start off with a roll call, please. Jamie?
Tim Shinyan.
Here.
Jack McKenzie.
Here.
Jason Steenblock.
Here.
Jim Blake.
Here.
Jackie McNamara. And Terry Steenblock.
Here.
All right. Wonderful. Next, we are looking for a motion to approve the agenda. Any subtractions or additions? If not, looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right. We got a motion, looking for a second. I will second. Any other questions or discussion?
Just have one comment here.
Yes.
This evening, I do not have the documents prepared for the September, the minutes for the regular meeting, September 19th, 2017. So I'd like to, my recommendation is to table that, remove it from this agenda, and approve those at our December meeting.
Okay.
So if someone would like to amend their motion.
Would you like to amend your motion to?
I would like to amend the motion to remove the regular meeting September 19th minutes out
Okay.
of this agenda.
And I will second that motion. Any other discussions? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Abstain? And that passes. Next, we have open forum. Does not look like we have anyone in the audience today. So we'll skip that segment. Next will be the regular agenda, the approval of minutes. So, Jamie, we have several minutes we have to approve. Can you just explain to us the process of doing this and trying to properly do this so that the people who approve it were at the meetings?
Yep, absolutely. So we do have some meeting minutes to get approved, formally approved. So tonight I have included just a little sheet as a guide for you to know if you've attended the meeting. If you have attended the meeting, you are able to vote on the approval. If you are not at the meeting, you just have to abstain from that vote.
Okay.
And so it should go fairly quickly, but it will be several motions of approving. If you can just specifically list the date of the meeting minutes that you're liking to approve, and we can go from there. So it looks like we have a few of them to approve.
Wonderful. So I'm just kind of briefly looking at your memo that you've sent us and then also the agenda dates, and
Yes,
they
it's
are slightly off.
So the first one is April 25th. So it is incorrect on the agenda. I'll correct that. But April 25th meeting, regular meeting.
Was that April 25th or was that April?
April 25th is the accurate date
Okay.
of the meeting.
All right. So everyone could kind of follow their staff memo on this so you guys can see who can vote and then who would have to abstain. If your name's not listed below on that meeting date, you would have to abstain. We can also go through any questions we have per specific meeting minutes. So I will like to make a motion to approve the minutes for the April 25th, 2017 meeting. Motion made, looking for a second.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstain.
Abstain.
And, okay, so passes. Next will be our regular meeting, May 16th, 2017. Did everyone have a chance to look at that meeting? Any questions? If not, looking for a motion to approve. I will make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from May 16th, 2017. We have a motion, looking for a second.
Second.
A second. Any other discussion or questions regarding the minutes? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oppose and abstain for Jason. All right.
And
Next.
Terry.
Abstain for me too.
And Terry. Perfect. All right. Next will be the regular meeting on July 19th, 2017. Did everyone have a chance to look at those meeting minutes? If so, we're looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion, looking for a second. I will second the meeting minutes. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Abstain?
Aye.
Abstain.
And 2 abstain. Next will be the regular meeting minutes from August 16th, 2017. Everyone have a chance to look at those minutes. Looking for a motion to approve. I will make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from August 16, 2017. We have a
Second.
motion made and a second by Jason. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose and abstain 1. Last one for tonight will be the special meeting from August 30th, 2017. Everyone have a chance to look at those minutes. Looking for a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes from August 30th, 2017. Looking for a second.
Second.
A second by Jason. Any other discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain. And we will, for tonight, skip the regular meeting from September 19th, 2017. And then Jamie, I talked to you earlier today. We also have meeting minutes from the second week of October that will also be available for us in December, correct?
Correct. We have the September meeting and then the October 10th, we had a workshop that was held.
Okay.
So, and then obviously the meeting minutes from tonight, and then those will be at our final meeting of the year.
Awesome, wonderful, thank you. All right. That was the painful part of the meeting. Anyways, we'll move on. Next will be the Timber Ridge Apartments Park Dedication Determination.
All right. Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, this evening we are reviewing a park dedication recommendation for a new development in proposed development in Forest Lake for the Timber Ridge Apartments. You have included in your packet this evening a staff memo that highlights and explains the development. It is a 3-unit apartment building at 4777 19th Street Southwest, and it's just north of the Gateway Green subdivision and south of Menards. As you can see here, the site was previously received city approval to build senior housing and commercial space. During the 2004 development review process, the original developer paid the parkland dedication fee for 51 residential units, so that credit is applied to this project. So with that, we are looking for a staff recommendation to the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission to accept a cash payment of $55,000, which is the remaining 22 units that were not paid for, times the current rate of $2,500 per unit to meet this project's parkland dedication requirement. With that, I will turn it over to the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission for any questions or comments. Otherwise, we're seeking action for approval this evening.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So can you explain so we're kind of just making a motion to approve the additional park dedication fees for this property because it was paid in 2004 and we did receive that money. Is that correct?
Correct. It was in the January 12th, 2004, there was a staff report that had some conditions of approval, and it stated that the applicant was required to submit the full monetary park dedication fee approved at $1,500 per unit. So that's where the credit would come in, or because those units were already paid for.
Okay. So they paid that amount in 2004, and now we're just looking to approve the additional total for that amount of property, correct?
Correct.
All right. Any other questions or discussion? If not, we'll be looking for a motion to approve the park dedication.
So moved.
Right. Motion, looking for a second.
Second.
All right, any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that passes. All right. Next will be the Arts in the Park Entertainment Proposal.
All right. Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, this evening you will have in your packet a proposal from the music promoter Woody McBride that we've contracted with over the last 3 years. And this evening, we are looking for discussion and potential action on determination if we want to continue moving forward with that partnership, and if so, what that would look like, or how you perceive or what you think of the proposed schedule, if there's any comments or concerns about that. So with that, I know I sent this out a few weeks ago, so you can have some preliminary review on bands that were proposed in the schedule. I did include a couple comments, and just for those who are newer to the group, that there are some groups that we've had scheduled consecutively through Mr. McBride for the past 3 years. There are some scheduling questions regarding, having when we're going to have some of our bigger name bands perform, and also just with our kids' nights, some groups that were hired last year that didn't show up, and if that's a group we'd want to have back. So our subcommittee for Arts in the Park, myself with Tim Shinyan and Terry Steenblock, did meet and have a preliminary conversation about it, and as we're looking at Arts in the Park. So tonight it's a discussion and action if necessary, or ready for that, to see if we want to move forward with Mr. McBride again for Arts in the Park 2018.
All right. Wonderful. So we did have a committee meeting about the Arts in the Park entertainment. Jamie, you kind of gave a little bit of insight that we're kind of, as now Jamie is now full-time for her second full year of Arts in the Park in 2018, we can decide if we want Jamie to retrieve all of the bids for the music and to set up the schedule and to create all that, or if we still would like to work with Woody McBride as we have for the last 3 or 4 years on for Arts in the Park. Can you explain, Jamie, a little bit some of the pros and cons of working with Woody McBride, some of the costs that it kind of pertains to his services?
Yeah, so working with Woody in the past few years, he uses his expertise in the industry to and connections for lining up concert series. So I know he also manages one in St. Croix Falls, and I believe he just acquired Stillwater as well. So it's his line of business, and he knows which groups generally are crowd pleasers and whatnot. So we have worked with in 2014, the former Park and Rec coordinator hired him for the first time to do that task as part of like music and production and coordination. So helping schedule the series, promote it, and be on site for some of the coordinating pieces. So I think he's done a good job in bringing different groups outside of the local groups that have previously played at Arts in the Park. He's very, it's very nice having him on site as a reliable source and not having to worry about that piece of the event every Tuesday. I know those are definitely been some of the benefits. Some of the challenges or things we've had to work through together have been some of the logistics of getting contracts set up with the different groups. So the city's had to create some forms, so an agreement goes out, a waiver, a photo release. The city created those documents, and it's basically he facilitates getting that paperwork completed by the different groups. So there have been some challenges in that process where I have had to be involved and help with some of those pieces and timeliness of getting them back by a certain deadline. So those are some of the challenges that we've worked through over the last couple of years. This does come at an additional expense, where we do have, I believe last year we paid Mr. McBride $3,300 for his services to cover the whole season, which was 12 Tuesdays. And I believe he's asking that same amount again this year. No increases in that cost. So he does have his proposal listed this year. His total budget for production and coordination would be $3,600. So that is $3,600 paid to Mr. McBride above what we pay for each band every Tuesday.
So for $300, it takes a load off of your plate.
$300 a week. There's about the 12 weeks, right?
$300 a week.
How much?
Go ahead, no, go ahead, Dolly.
As as Jack mentioned, $300, it takes a load off your plate. How much does it actually take a load off your plate? You said that you feel like you're doing quite a bit of work for each Arts in the Park night that you don't, we're trying to figure out if Woody McBride is still a good fit for us.
I think that there's still some level of involvement regardless of contracting or hiring Mr. McBride. You know, it's been a process. We've had these new agreements and forms that need to be filled out. So that was 2 years ago. So the first year was definitely, there was a lot more hands-on in that process. And last year I feel like it was improved upon. Other than that, I know there's sometimes the challenges of having a third party is, you know, a communication piece. If, for example, we had a cancellation or rescheduling and I have to wait to I'm working through Mr. McBride, and yet if I can't and I need to quickly, you know, it's just then I go to the source, and that's sometimes an instant response. So it's sometimes of the middle operation where it could be potentially be a little more efficient in the fact of just getting the paperwork sent out and getting it back to me and not having a third party in the middle of facilitating that. So there's that piece that I think I've been very, more involved in. I'm not as diversified in knowing the local music and performers and who's done well at other areas, but I know we've had some recommendations from our Parks Commission that have done really well. Function Junction was Kathy Schulte's recommendation, and I don't know if Jim, I believe you had recommended the Harold's Blue Band. That went over well. So I mean, I personally, myself, I'm not the most diversified in selecting music, but I think that there are other people and resources that could be available beyond what we receive from Mr. McBride.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is I know a lot of the bands, I know Woody offers sound and production services and is on site, and I think that's really helpful to have that. I know a lot of the bands are self-contained, meaning they can come and set up their own sound and production, so it sometimes is a matter of, are we paying double for that piece of it or not? And I just don't have that strong background in music and production and booking talent, essentially. That's, I don't really have a background in that, but that's what I've learned from calling on a few different groups is they can bring and set up self-contained their own equipment and plug in and be ready to go.
There were a couple times, though, that at concerts I was at that Woody being there made a difference because they had trouble getting something working and he got it going.
Yep.
Where I wouldn't have been able to. I don't know if you would have been able to. So, I mean, there is some benefit to having somebody that knows all this stuff he knows. And
Yeah, and I agree. Like I said before,
those
I
two
think
situations might have been
Right.
without music.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's a big piece is peace of mind, just knowing that the show's gonna go on and without a hitch with him there on the Tuesdays. So it just comes, I think, maybe more of the scheduling of the entertainment. I think there's a challenge that we face when we're working with another group on the scheduling piece because they might not know other events going on in the community. I know he has recommended Teddy Bear Band is really popular and it got taken away from the series a few years ago, but he's recommended to have that back. But me working with other local partners, so like the YMCA and Community Ed and the library, I know a little bit more of, okay, the library is doing a big truck event and they hired the Teddy Bear Band June 25th. So we wouldn't want to have the Teddy Bear Band play twice within a short period of time. Same with Charlie O as a recommendation. Well, we always hire Charlie O for the 4th of July. So I think there's some of that scheduling piece of knowing when having a lot of more, I think I'm providing more input or need to provide input on some of those scheduling pieces. So I think that's a challenge that we face where I'm spending a portion of my time helping with that as well.
Which was one of the questions I wanted to ask was, what is his process? Because as I looked at the schedule, I noticed like he's got Elvis on July 3rd. Elvis has typically been pretty popular, and that's a holiday weekend. And so I'm just curious, as part of when he books this talent, how does he consult with us to determine what the needs may be and what the schedule might be, or does he just kind of blanket go out and do it for us in multiple different cities as well?
So I know that he does use, or some of the performers that are at Forest Lakes concert series are ones that you'll see at St. Croix Falls and probably now also in Stillwater. What he's done here, he's done it as free will, took his first effort at scheduling out and is very open and looking for our feedback on what we think is a good, what we think of this initial proposal. But I think he's working with some groups and scheduling them in other areas, and I don't know how he picks the dates that he thinks might be best fit for our event. But I know that this is very much all these bands are on a courtesy hold with these dates, and that's not something that the city's asked for. It's just something he's done as a first effort at a proposal. And I know last year, for example, because it's a little more fresh in my mind, he did the same process, presented us with the first effort of, here's a proposal, and then we did come back with making some adjustments, not too many, but that's just the process he's had with us so far. And he does look for our feedback on how to go from there. So once the schedule would be set, so if we would go back with feedback, once the schedule is set, then he sends out the forms that the city requires, so an agreement between the city and the entertainer, a waiver, and then a photo release. So he sends those out on our behalf, essentially, so I'm not doing that piece of it. Gets them all back by a set deadline and submits them to the city. So that's kind of the pre-work prior to the season kicking off, and then he's on site every Tuesday during Arts in the Park. So I think around 3:30 or so until probably 8.
So the $3,600 pays for him to identify the bands, firm up a schedule, be there the day of the event, and, or is that it?
You say he did advertising, or?
So originally when he was first hired in 2014, I think the concept was for having him completely market and promote the concert series. He used to create flyers for the first year or so. He created a flyer, but it was very much not branded city. It looked more like just a general concert series and not branded City of Forest Lake. It looked more of like Woody McBride's entertainment series, and that's the best way I can explain it. So the city wanted a little bit of ownership on the marketing piece so that people can associate it with a city event and city branding and whatnot. So that's where the last couple of years I've worked on a flyer to create and for our marketing piece for our promotion. So the promotion side of it has not been a significant piece to his puzzle here in Forest Lake. The other areas you discussed very much so, but I think with St. Croix Falls or other areas he runs a concert series. I think he's doing everything. So he's doing full promotion as well.
Is there the ability to split it up? So to say, we'll find the venues, but we want you on site the day of the event to handle any issues?
That's nothing we've talked to him about. It certainly is something we can ask him and see how that might adjust his rate. I don't know if the rate how that would affect the rate or not for just being on site for those hours. But that's certainly.
The only thing I wonder about is that if we're paying him $3,600 and he's basically setting up the same bands for multiple different cities, it seems like it would be. I just knowing that I called a few, right, to check on and emailed a few to check on availability and pricing and whether or not they were self-contained. It was relatively easy to do, and they were very responsive. And so I'm wondering, could that part of that $3,600 maybe be used to readjust some of the entertainment and use him the day of the event? And then I'm also wondering, in addition to us paying him the $3,600, does he get paid by the bands to book any of these events as well?
I don't know if he has any other arrangements of that nature. I just know what we would be required, what we've paid him for his services to the city. So I'm not certain on that answer. I think that seeing if we can negotiate a contract with him, it sounds like a little bit what you're leaning towards. I think a big part of what he does is he tries and has helped do is grow the event or draw in more like name following bands that people are interested in. So I think there's that benefit. I think as a group, though, what do we see Arts in the Park in our concert series? I have a challenge, going back to the challenges, is I have a list of people that have called me for the last 2-3 years wanting to get back into the series because they were pulled from it, or just new groups that are looking for an opportunity. So a challenge is I get several phone calls, and when I was out 2 years ago, we tried to develop a process to facilitate that. So what is that? We send them to Woody and say, here's our music promoter, and work through him. But then we're kind of losing some of those contacts for future if needed. So there are a lot of groups that are looking to play. I've looked into a couple of them.
For what we're paying, you can get almost any bands that I've gone to see will play for that money. I mean, that's good money. That $700 a night. That's there's people that pay considerably less for that. For little
So I mean,
bars.
if you break it down, I mean, could the city with staff and commission members, or just can we put it out to the community of who's your top favorite at Arts in the Park and they pick a night or two? I don't know. But to fill in 12 weeks, is that something that you guys want to consider doing on our own? Is there a risk in losing some of our following, or risk in that and growing the event? Or I guess those are some of the things we have to think about.
Well, it seems like mostly it's going to fall on you more than anything else. So you know the positives and the negatives of it. Knowing that, which way do you lean? I mean, I would certainly back the way you want to go, because you're the one that's going to get hung, doing a lot of this, I think.
I think the biggest thing for me, I think Woody's been great to work with. I think very professional, and I think having him on site is a big asset, so that myself or nobody else for city staff or whatnot is worrying about electrical issues, or I know.
That's a big thing.
Yeah, and so I mean, I think that's a big part. I think that the question just comes down to, how much of my time should I be spending on it? It goes back to contracting with any service or whatnot. If you contract it out, what's your expectation? Should they be just doing it and doing it well and getting it done how we're hoping? And, kind of going to what Terry said, is it just kind of reshuffling of dates of used groups in other series, or is there a special, what is the process in that? And maybe we need to just clarify our expectations, if, I don't want, Jamie shouldn't be involved because we're paying you to do these parts kind of deal. So, because right now I am involved a decent amount in spending time on it.
But it would be considerably more if he stepped out of the equation and you were fully in it.
The only additional piece right now would be like doing the research and sourcing, soliciting of the bands, so reaching out to finding new user groups and contacting them, which again, I know that part isn't too difficult, just to make a call and say, are you available this date and time? And then we send out paperwork. So beyond that, the day of is the big piece, I think.
Yeah.
Would we be able to help you with that as members of is that appropriate or not, as members of the subcommittee, if we wanted to help you reach out and find some, or is that
Yeah,
not
I mean, that's
appropriate?
absolutely, anybody could provide input on who you would like to see, and if it's just a matter of developing that list and contacting them, that's absolutely welcomed.
Mm-hmm.
What did does anyone have any feedback? I know I sent this out a little while ago. Did you guys have any other feedback on like the current proposed schedule? Or, how much work do you think would need to be adjusted from this? Are you guys kind of liking what you see outside of some of those scheduling pieces?
I definitely see that there are some adjustments that we can make. I would feel, I guess, a little bit of cheap if we decide not to go with Woody, but then we contact all of these music groups that he's already put placeholders in, and we hire them. Because I know Woody has put some effort into 2018 so far. But at the same time, I am open for us to. I'm kind of open either way, whether if we use Woody or not. One question I have really quickly for you, Jamie: do we contract out Woody, or do we have an agreement with Woody? I'm just trying to figure out our relationship, and maybe if we were to collaborate together, maybe an agreement would be better instead of a contract.
So it is an agreement that we hold with Woody.
Okay.
So we don't contract him out, but it's an agreement that we have that he's covering sound production, scheduling, of the bands. And so the city still, I have to still process the checks for bands. So once I get all the paperwork back, I take their information and I process check requests for the bands. We bring them to the park and then just get them to the band. So it's an agreement with said responsibilities within the agreement.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad question to ask. The question you were asking is he charging the bands, like, say, I'll get you in, I'll get you this gig, but you gotta pay me $100. I mean, that's, because, you know what you're giving the band, but the band may be paying for the opportunity, I mean.
Or
that-
like multiple bookings or whatnot.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I have no idea what arrangements he has with the bands.
I think if we go with him, I do think there needs to be some adjustments made here. I think we need to look at, I mentioned the Elvis Day. Do we really want that to be on the 3rd of July? I think too, if we do the blues piece and we've got the blue, how does that line up with that piece of it? I was also wondering if we've always done 2 kids' nights and that's just something that, are they both successful? Is that something that needs to be looked at? I don't know enough because I mean, those are questions I would have or things I think, just looking at the schedule, there's a few things there that we should check to see how they coincide with other activities that are already happening in the community. That's why I was kind of wondering what he does to gather feedback when he's booking the bands, or does he do anything to figure out, like at Arts in the Park or otherwise, to figure out feedback from residents to determine what to book?
To date, and to my knowledge, I haven't received any information from him if he's collected any data around who's preferred which groups. This last year, it was requested that he send like estimated attendance numbers, so I have that, so I can kind of gauge who was there. But that might be the band, it might have been the weather, it could have been the fact that it's a kids' night, and there's multiple factors in that. So I don't think specifically asking or doing any surveying on which group do you like. So I can certainly check in on some of those questions and see what additional information I can get from him.
I would think maybe on the 4th or the 3rd of July, that, there's so many people in town. I mean, even though a lot of people are gone, it brings so many people into the city that you're still going to have it packed.
That's what I was worried about, because I think
You mean,
a lot of
is
the
it already?
elderly community, like the Elvis, and there's so many people in the community, is it more difficult for them to get into the
Get in.
community because of the crowds that are already here?
Already here for that
And
date.
so would that have an impact? I mean, that was what.
But it sounds like he's pretty open, like if you suggest things to him, especially this early. This is just a tentative plan, right? I mean, you can switch.
Yeah, it definitely is a tentative plan. I think the question just comes down to like how much of the, my time would you, will I still be working on it if we're coming back with, let's just say 50% changes to the proposed schedule.
Yeah.
And then having to provide the feedback of, okay, I know this event's, they're playing this date and July 3rd's already going to probably be pretty busy at Arts in the Park, so maybe we play a good group, but maybe not one of our top performers, to save that for another night where we can make it be a big night when there's not that natural crowd draw. And I'm happy to do all of that. It's just a matter of Parks Commission's input on, if we're paying the $3,600 to Mr. McBride, but yet knowing that I'm spending time and effort on it, as well as potential volunteer time to get the schedule piece lined up how we would think it would be best fit. Like the kids' nights, for example, I know last year we ended up having Leela perform, and we recommended like a Chinese night. So he did end up going out then and sourcing the St. Paul like Chinese cam dance group. So that was feedback we had given him, and he responded appropriately with that. Some of the other kids' nights, though, like Dance Tech Studios or Dance Factory, I work with them on other events. So some of those scheduling pieces, I might already have a connection. So, maybe we just look at some options, and if it's, maybe we say we're going to pick a few nights and you schedule 8 of the 12, or, maybe we figure out a happy medium where we say we're going to schedule these dates, and then he can pick in the rest with his expertise. And I don't know, that's just me, quick came to mind.
That might be better than just doing a jump in full out.
Yeah.
Because I would think if you took 4 and he took 8, he would reduce his charge, you know, basically by however much percent you're gonna take over, you know? And then you wouldn't be totally hanging out there if it,
And that just came to my mind as an option to explore of, it is an annual agreement, and maybe we just look at the agreement a little closer, see if there's a way to amend it and still work with them, because we think there's the value add, but maybe we just say we're responsible for 4 of the 12, and then beyond that, you know, he can schedule the rest and be paid for that amount.
So would we still want him there for the other 4 that we do? For the
I would
extra
ask him
sound?
what that cost would be just to be there for the production piece, so it would just be an amend, you know, a change to his agreement and what that cost would be. I mean, if we can get, that's just a starting point as an idea. So I think from here, I will follow up with him with some questions, get some more information, let him know our general feedback is, you know, we're interested in a partnership to, just need to determine if there's any changes to that, and just see how we go from there and see what he can offer for us.
Do you think that possibly Terry, myself, you, and Woody McBride might be able to meet before our next meeting? I think it's on December 19th, to kind of put together our schedule, our thoughts of the schedule, possibly make adjustments to the agreement that we have, so that we could have something approved by the December meeting. I know we're hoping to approve this before the end of the year.
Yeah, I think
Have to.
that would work for me completely.
Are you open to doing that?
Yep.
How many hours on a Tuesday night is he here? And how many hours does he prepare to be here? And we're talking $300. If he spends 3 hours, it's $100 an hour.
I think generally speaking, he's at the park around 3:30 or 4, give or take each week, until about 8. So, and then so basically I would estimate 4 to 5 hours a week is an estimate.
And that's plus is that plus his equipment that he brings out also?
Right.
So he's bringing equipment.
He is bringing equipment, yep.
Is that because he has an agreement with these bands that he's chosen, or is that because I think there are several bands that are, this isn't the only venue that they play at, so they are self-sufficient and have their own sound equipment. So I'm wondering if he's doing that
As
as a thing to help them, or is it part of a package deal that he's working on with them to help book them? I would be curious to know, you know,
Sure.
why he brings the equipment, and if some of these bands don't have it, or what the reasoning is behind it.
maybe good questions if you met with them. To find those things.
Yeah, we'll be able to discuss with him. And then I think both Terry and I, we could come back in December and give a recommendation, whether if we want to continue working with them, whether if we feel like it's a good fit, what the expenses will be. I think we could kind of figure out a lot of those things. So that's kind of my suggestion of that.
Yeah, I'm open either way. I just have lots of questions and would like the answers to the questions before we figure out if we want to continue that or not.
Wonderful.
Okay,
All right.
well, that was a good discussion on that, so I'll schedule a meeting with Tim, Terry, myself, and Woody, and talk about a revised schedule and see if we can look at I'll bring a copy of the agreement from last year and see if we can get some things finalized from there.
All right, wonderful. Next will be rink reservations and fee schedule.
All right, so this evening, we are gonna talk about, rinks, reservations, and fee schedule. So last night, the city council reviewed our city's fee schedule. I intended on talking about this in October. We didn't have a quorum and we're not able to meet. There is still potential opportunity to look at getting this added to the fee schedule for 2018 with the city council. It hasn't been formally adopted yet. But I did want to talk about with Tower Park, we did add our new used rink out there, and I did meet with the Forest Lake Hockey Association, and they are interested in potentially renting it out or reserving it for practices one night, at least one night a week. I did explain that we are looking at potentially figuring out a reservation policy and procedure around rinks now, because we've never reserved rinks like we've done shelters or fields. I said there might be likely would be then a small fee for that per hour, similar to our ball fields, which is $15 an hour. So tonight, just a brief discussion. I also had one other group email me late last week inquiring about reserving an ice rink as well. They would like to have a broom ball event with their friends or family, coworkers kind of deal, and want to make sure they have the ice time to themselves. So in thinking about it, I know the city of Burnsville, they have courts, fields, and rinks all for reservation on their city page. They also, for hockey rinks, they have many that they have available for reservation, so they can do hockey practice. Or another thing that I've learned and discovered is a lot of communities can rent out rinks for birthday parties and open up the warming house. That's really popular. So they do $14.50 an hour for their fee. I haven't done a lot of research on this of what other communities are charging, because I'd feel comfortable with like a $15 an hour, just like our ball fields. So one, a brief discussion on this tonight, and two, if you guys do feel that we should potentially open up rink reservations from a procedural standpoint, I don't think it'd be that difficult. We have online reservations, people can fill out a form and then they pay the city. I think it would be a good opportunity for Hockey Association. There was even some expressed interest in maybe people would have a mites tournament at the rink at Tower Park, birthday parties, and just other events if we open that up for reservations. So one is the fee for the per hour for renting the rinks, and two, would we want to have an option for a birthday party opening up the warming house at Tower Park, and would we charge or be interested in charging something additional for that? We do have to staff. Would probably have to provide staff for that, so covering our costs for that. So I guess those are kind of the information I have for you tonight, and it's an open discussion and looking to seek action if anyone is interested in doing that this evening on adding rinks to be reserved in our fee schedule. Mm-hmm. And I guess one more comment, my recommendation would be just the new tower rink, and so we can keep Belts Park is always just a pleasure rink. And then at Tower Park, keeping one rink always just open and available for general public. So my recommendation or initial thought would just be having the one to be reserved.
Right. Perfect. One thing I kind of looked into a little bit. The city of Scandia, they have a really nice ice rink that they have a Zamboni for and everything else. And I think their hourly rates ranging between $15 and $16. But they have a lot more features. They have a Zamboni that can kind of, make sure the ice is clean. They have a really nice warming house, restrooms and everything else out there. I know that's not something we necessarily have. If we were to set some up if someone were to book something on a fee schedule, would we be able to guarantee that we will have someone out there on behalf of the parks department, such as a park ranger, to be there during that time, or is it potential that the ice house might not be open or something like that?
I think that it really depends on the reservation. So right now, if someone, let's just use baseball fields, the city staff's not always there, but we still prep them. So we do have a Zamboni, drag along Zamboni that we are using. So our rinks are going to still be maintained the same way, regardless if it's reserved or not. Public Works, Monday through Friday, will, as their schedule allows, they maintain the rinks. And shovels are on site, so if it snows, whether it's reserved or not, can clear the snow off of there. Public Works doesn't come in on weekends for that. Correct. Warming house is open on weekends. Hours are tentatively 12 to 6, so noon to 6 at Tower Park. So for the most part, they're staffed. I am working with the Hockey Association on potentially, some volunteers to open the warming house for additional hours during the week. So I guess my answer would be, it wouldn't necessarily be if it was a birthday party and we knew that and they're requesting the warming house as a special edition, I would staff somebody to be there for that, but then that would cover some of those, the
Right.
cost would have to be covered in that. So I think that would have to factor into our hourly rate. It's not like we're trying to generate revenue off of it. It's just a nice service to have to the community.
Right. So yeah, I'm sorry.
What
go
do we
ahead.
charge?
Yeah,
Like,
so I mean,
what are we paying that?
that's kind of
individual?
my thought. Let's say if the hockey association says we would like it for 2 hours after school on Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. If the ice house, or if the warming house is not open and we did get a light coating of snow and we don't have a park ranger or someone who's operating the warming house at the time, they're just kind of going to an open skating rink. When there are other places that I know pay that $15 to $16 range, the warming house is open and they maintain, ice while they're there the entire time, which our people do too. We're just not staffing it the entire time. So my only thought is, will those amenities be open to them? If whatever schedule there would be, would we always make sure someone's there or would we not? And I think that's half of the price right there is, the access to the warming house and how us as a park commission will maintain the rinks when they're there at the time.
So with that, with the Hockey Association, I know several years ago there was some form of partnership, and they volunteered time, had access with, had a key to the warming house, and volunteered to be on site and open up the warming house while they were there practicing. So that we did have that discussion of, if they're paying to reserve it, we'd give them access in some capacity.
Okay.
I think some of those outlier situations of Terry's company is going to reserve it and have a broomball tournament. Would they have the warming house or not? I think that, yes, they should have it, and just figuring out those details of the logistics on that. I mean, I don't think we're going to get, based on the number of shelter reservations we get in the summer, maybe 30 or so, I don't think we're going to get, outside of the Hockey Association, too many people that are going to pay and reserve for rink time. It might be an occasional tournament or two on the weekend if people even want to pursue that. And the weekends it would be open, and if it's a weekday, then I think I could certainly staff somebody, and their costs would be covered in that fee.
And then would that warming house be available to Joe and Josephine public if they show up for the other ice rink?
It would be open at that time, so I don't think that they would be getting an exclusive warming house access. They're basically paying to reserve time so they know they can schedule a practice and have the ice available for their practices. Because I know that there seems to be a shortage of outdoor ice time, or you're going to pay a pretty penny in some other areas. So I think right now the feedback I had gotten was, they're leaving Forest Lake to get ice time outdoors. So it would be a way for them meaning the Hockey Association or other groups, to just know we have a practice at Tower Park on Tuesday from 6 to 7, and the lights are on, they're on a timer. Right now they might have to go somewhere else for that outdoor rink time. They could certainly show up and just see what happens if it's available, but if it's packed with, which we actually had a lot of people there last year, they might not get to have their practice that they're intending to have. So it's just a way for them to guarantee that ice time. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're there to practice for the most part is what I foresee, other than the exceptions of like a birthday party, where that's where an add-on item, like, do you want to reserve the warming house as well? And that would be kind of an exclusive, this is for a birthday party. They pay additional for that. Otherwise, I feel like they're pretty much there to practice and want the ice time, and they aren't relying on the warming house. But if it's the Hockey Association or some other youth group, I think it's a partnership on potentially getting them access to be in there.
How do people know it's reserved?
So I did have that conversation. We can put up some form of sign on that rink. It's reserved from this time, here's the time it's reserved by this user group. People can have a confirmation that they've paid the city for that. Similar to what we do at our shelters right now, it's somewhat free will, but we do post a sign that says private party reserved this date and time.
What if we could use the hockey association, that the kids that want to use it, to have a partnership, just a partnership with them, and say, maintain the rinks and this, and then that way they'd be able to maintain that, plus also have the public come in without a fee,
Yeah.
and make it more user-friendly to them, because that's what they're kind of going for.
I do know that Public Works is going to maintain the rinks, so the only thing that will need to be done will be like shoveling of snow off of the rinks. But the city's staff is going to maintain doing the flooding and the Zamboni work. I think they just want to keep that so they can keep the good level of ice and consistency. So there won't need to be that maintenance piece. It's a great idea as a partnership, but I know we've had that conversation of city staff should probably just maintain them and then just keep shovels on site if needed for snow removal. But I still think there is some form of potential partnership opportunity. You know, if they're there and opening the warming house at additional hours than what we can offer from paid staff, you know, I think there's opportunity to partner in that extent.
Partnership would-
I know from talking about it a little bit over the last month or two, just, you know, $15 an hour is not a significant amount to pay to just have a reserved practice time. I think people are receptive to that. I mean, people pay $10 an hour to reserve a shelter at the park for a birthday party or family gathering or whatever it might be. So it's just definitely a discussion item. If you guys feel like you want to potentially add that, I can try to get it in for next year's fee schedule. Like I said, City Council just reviewed it last night. I can't make any promises, but there still could be that option to get it in if you're interested in that.
I think there's value in looking at it, because the other piece of it is this gives them good hours for ice time. Whereas ice time other places, it could be 6 a.m., it could be 10 p.m., it could be, so I think $15 is a reasonable amount for guaranteed ice time.
But are we asking them when the warming house is not open, are we asking them to come out and open that for us, the hockey association?
We haven't really gotten too far in that conversation. There's definitely positive feedback on a partnership and what that might look like. So I don't know if they'd be out there, you know, let's say they want to reserve ice time for Tuesday nights for 4 hours, and they can get 4 teams out there, or however many, you know, use half and half and get quite a few teams out there for some good practice time. They would potentially, and this is to be worked out, but, you know, have a key and open the warming house, and that would be open to the general public on those Tuesday nights for 4 hours. So, you know, that could potentially be an opportunity.
Okay.
Has the hockey association ever had the keys to the warming house in the past?
I think that they have, not since I've been in this position, but I believe years prior they've held a key and have volunteered, you know, parents volunteered Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. They filled in as many hours as they could to open the warming houses.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess really what it come down to is right now our fee schedule says like $15 an hour per field for a field reservation. If you want to have a practice and reserve the field, you pay $15 an hour. We don't get a lot of those, but this would be a similar thing. If people are starting to ask to reserve the rinks, which they are, right now anything else that we reserve, there's a fee for it. So minimal, you know, $10 an hour. They put in a shelter reservation fee or request, and that's the fee to make sure you get this whatever facility it is you're looking for.
My biggest thing is I kind of like the idea of possibly charging $10 for a rink, and then if they would like the warming house and a staff person to be on hand, charge an extra $5 or $6 for that. And I kind of want to do that across the board. I think if you did that for, you know, let's say if the hockey association, you know, does that for their tournaments, and then one of the parents from the hockey association has a 6-year-old birthday party, they have the key. You know, they could go there, they can go have their two kids go do the same thing on the weekend or something like that. I kind of am a little hesitant of just kind of handing over the keys for some of that stuff. At the same time, it's not just hockey stuff that's in the warming house. There's a lot of city items as well. I kind of like the idea of having a low number just for an hour-long rink reservation, and then an additional fee if they would like to have an attendant on hand. And that attendant would come from our
Ice
parks
rink attendant.
department. Right. Approximately, how much does it cost per hour for an ice rink attendant that we've paid in the past?
I believe just a general range is like the $10 to $12 an hour range for a rink attendant.
All right.
So we wouldn't want to charge 5 then? I mean, we don't want to, we
Maybe
want to
not.
at least charge what
Right.
it costs us. I mean,
So maybe an $8 ice rink and then $8 for an attendant, which would include a warming house, and that person will help shovel or clear snow or, you know, different things like that, that is additional to that. And for some people, that's going to be worth that $16 fee. And I know it's
well, I
not.
think it'd be worth more than that. I mean, it's going
Right.
to cost, because it's not just the fee you pay that person.
Right.
You got, you know, whatever else that comes out. You
Why
know.
not just $20 an hour and they get the attendant
Yeah.
and done?
Right, and I was gonna
You
say,
have to have it enough to make sure that we're not
Yeah.
losing money every time someone.
so I think keeping an even number, shelters are $10 an hour, and if you want electrical, it's an additional $25 flat fee. So I mean, if you kind of think of it that way, your hourly rate for your reservation, and then instead of do you want electrical, do you want the attendant, and it's this extra charge.
But what if someone comes back and says, we'll just take care of it ourselves, give us the key?
Then we'd say no.
We wouldn't, the city's not gonna be handing out keys. It would be a determined partnership, and that was potentially only with the hockey association. If we had further conversations that would say, we can volunteer time Monday through Thursday for 3 hours each night. You know, that's a different that's a partnership where it's a pretty formal thing. We know we're giving the key to the president of hockey association, and that's happened years before. That would be the only situation where a key would be handed out, because there is other city storage items in there. They're locked up behind, you know, not accessible, but still there's that little bit of risk there. So the partnership potential given of a key would only be hockey association, because that's happened before several years ago, if they're able to commit X amount of hours in a week. But I think the fee schedule would be regardless of a partnership or not, an hourly rate, and if you want the attendant, you know, additional fee for that.
Agree.
Any other comments or thoughts on that?
So you're looking for a motion at some point in time, $15 an hour, and if you want the attendant, it'll be another 12.
If you guys feel like you want to take action tonight, it was mostly a discussion to put it on the table, to know that this opportunity could be present for us for 2018. If I can get this still in the fee schedule, just kind of add it in there before it's formally adopted by City Council. They reviewed it last night for the first time. Staff recommendation is I'm comfortable with a $10 or $15 an hour fee for rink reservations. People don't have to reserve it. This would be a very new thing. No one's reserved it before. They've just been going and utilizing the rinks as they're available. However, I do feel that there is going to be a little more demand for the outdoor rinks because of the improvements. So, you know, we are charging that fee, but think of the costs that go into a lot of labor has gone into getting the new rinks set up, obviously the purchase for it, and then there's actually quite a few maintenance hours from Public Works that go into maintaining good quality ice throughout the season. So, you know, it's just a way to help alleviate some of those costs that we're preparing for them and providing them an opportunity to have outdoor rink time for practices and tournaments, fun gatherings, etc.
Perfect.
So, Jack, if you want to take action this evening as a recommendation to City Council or to get it added to the fee schedule, you certainly could.
I make the motion that we add to the fee schedule a $15 an hour rink fee for any occasion. One rink would always be open to the public, and if the renter is interested, they can rent the warming house and an attendant for $10 an hour
Additional.
additional.
All right. We have a
And the house will be, at that time, open to the public as well.
Second.
All right. A motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? I just wanted to clarify, that's per hour.
Correct, yes.
So it isn't the attendant the entire 3-hour span,
No,
it's
no,
per hour.
Per hour.
Per hour, perfect. All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Abstain? That passes. Wonderful. Moving right along, we'll go to Lakeside Memorial Park equipment.
All right, Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, we've been talking about the equipment at Lakeside Memorial Park. I recently met with Landscape Structures on site to further assess the equipment and get some estimates on items we've talked about, which include the cost for new equipment at Lakeside Memorial Park, and also the removal of the existing equipment and the cost to relocate it to another park within the community. So I do have some feedback from you. It came in later last week, and basically we're looking at, I think, a good estimate for a nice 5 to 12-year-old playground equipment and a zip line, with also a 2 to 5-year-old little play areas, right around $90,000 to $100,000 for new equipment, and I think that would be really suitable for Lakeside Memorial Park. The equipment that is there right now can be reused in another location. However, it will need to be, it's pretty difficult to assess until you remove it, how much you're gonna need to repair in parts. So we made the assumption that all the poles and all of the decks of the platforms would need to be replaced. So assuming that, they estimated about $25,000 to replace those parts and reinstall in another location. So with that, I think want to turn it over for discussion tonight. I do have, I can pull something up here in just a minute. One idea that I did talk about with Landscape Structures is right now we have our existing container where we have the playground equipment, so the round circle down by the lake. There is a nice little green space just adjacent to that that really isn't utilized. It's pretty open, and I thought maybe we could look at making another smaller container for the 2 to 5 equipment so that it's right by each other, but yet gives a little separation from the little guys to the bigger kids playing. So this is discussion tonight, just to see if you guys have any other questions or feedback on this topic, if we're going in the right direction, if you guys still feel strongly about new equipment down there, and just kind of discussion on next steps and how we want to see this moving forward. One thing I did talk to them about is there is the Minnesota, I think DNR has an outdoor recreation grant. It's an annual grant, and the timing is that it's coming up again here fairly soon. I believe annually it's due end of March deadline, so March 2018. I think that this would be a great opportunity. I've talked to other communities who have applied and received the grant for, basically they've applied for playground improvements for safety and accessibility. So that would be our similar reason for that. Some of the equipment that is recommended is inclusive for people of all abilities, and so I think with that, part of the discussion is if the playground isn't yet deemed unsafe and there's not any inherent, apparent risks right now, I'd like to personally pursue that grant opportunity, but then we would be looking at a fall or even like early spring next year to have this project complete. So timing wise, is that something that is okay with everybody? Just want to really see this project continue moving forward. If we don't go for the grant opportunity or save that for a different day, we could potentially be looking at getting this complete and installed in the spring. So just some feedback as you guys have if you have any comments, I'll pull up a quick map here and turn it over to you.
How much is the grant?
The grant it varies, but I think some of the communities have gotten like $60,000, and there's the match component, which obviously we would then be matching, but it's a pretty significant amount of money. It's an intensive process and very competitive, but I think there's some potential dollars to have there. So we could apply and take that opportunity. If we don't get it, we could probably install a little sooner and still have it be a 2018 project. So With
Where
that, I'll
does
see
the
if you guys have
funding
any.
come from? I mean,
So
do
any
we
of our-
have the funds right now?
We do. Any of our major park improvements come out of our park dedication fund.
Okay.
And I believe our current balance with this new dedication we just approved will probably be at about $275,000 in park dedication fees. And I can get an exact number, but it's right in that ballpark. With that though, once the funding we have for capital improvements is really dependent on development. I think there's a couple other proposed projects coming up for future development, but there's no set revenue stream on. It's hard to project when we will have those funds replenished, and that really funds all of our big capital improvement projects.
Wonderful. So you mentioned it would cost roughly $25,000 to remove the equipment and put it back in place. Is that correct, Jamie?
Let me just pull this up here really quick.
Okay.
And
About right. Well, right. If we were to put it back,
Same
or
company
move it, I
that's
guess it would be
rebuilding the
same
gazebo
amount.
out in Dragon
We'd have to
Park,
pull the entire thing away.
or the shelter in Dragon Park?
it is the same company reps the shelter as well. The city's going to now put the pavilion together.
The city is?
Yeah, we now will have, they had some scheduling conflicts with people that could construct the pavilions. So the city staff now has the resources. They didn't, in the peak of the summer and fall season when they were really busy. So now city staff, so we're gonna save that cost, and the city
Oh.
staff is able to put the
We're gonna save-
pavilion together.
Okay.
Are they gonna have the ability to put this $100,000 park together?
They will.
Okay.
I feel confident in that. I've toured, City of Roseville got a new park installed by this company. And part of this too is this is an initial bid, just to kind of they're the company that currently Landscape Structures under a different ownership is the equipment we have there. It's not to say that we need to replace it with Landscape Structures equipment. There's also Game Time. There's other companies we could certainly pursue, and we probably would require multiple bids on this. So, which is probably another next step for me. But I feel confident in their capabilities. Right now, the equipment was direct bury procedure, and the current ownership would not have done that. They would have, poured the concrete slab and made sure the equipment was surface mounted. So that's the, process that we will have moving forward. They still do want to really closely meet with the city and their engineering team because of the proximity to the lake to make sure that enough concrete slab is poured so that we don't have any more shifting issues in the future. But this has occurred over about a 12-year period, so it's not like it's happened overnight or anything. But they want to make sure that it is done right this next time so that we aren't in that same situation down the road.
So just the footings around the playground will be cement? Or is everything gonna be cement and then there's gonna be padding on top?
So you can do it a couple different ways. If we do like a loose fill fall protection, so your rubber mulch or engineered wood fiber chips, you really only need to pour a slab large enough for pieces to be surface mounted.
Okay.
They do also have a pour in place fall protection. So there's a couple different methods. The pour in place is something they recommended if we wanted more of that unitary fill. That's where they would potentially do the concrete slab throughout the whole container and then do the pour in place. So there's some of that isn't quoted, that's hard to quote, but they did give me kind of an idea on what that would look like. So let me pull this up here quick.
And then the fiber mulch or the rubber mulch, is that gonna be an add-on to the $90,000 to $100,000?
We would have additional costs for the whatever fall protection we would choose. So it says estimated costs for the surface mounting option on all pieces. It's around $95,000, and that's before an 8% state contract discount. So it's just to kind of give you an idea. We could do something really nice and new at Lakeside for like $90,000 to $100,000 in equipment, hard costs, and then just the additional for the prep work and installation.
And the protection.
Installation is typically 25% of costs. And so estimated at about 24,000 additional for installation.
So what's to say that the cement isn't gonna crack? Because I know that the problem down there is that we've got bad soil. I mean, we've got clay that's freezing and thawing, right? So if you pour a slab and you direct mount to the slab and the slab breaks,
Still gonna crack.
you know, I don't know of any cement that doesn't crack in Minnesota. So I just hate to see us put two, you know, 150,000, it sounds like, by the time you get the one moved and get this one in, and have 6 years from now, and be in the same position.
Yeah, I think that I think doing it, I mean, the concrete slab out at Fenway that we used for pickleball courts was hardly cracked at all. You know, I think there was enough rebar, and I'm not into construction and can't really speak the language that well, so I apologize, but I think if it's done properly, I'm thinking that, you know, it would be okay. I mean, there was hardly any cracks in that slab, and that had been there for 10 years. So I think if it's engineered or the right depths and enough rebar and everything, I think it would be fine. And I know they do that for other parks, but they did say that it's not, you know, they haven't experienced too much like with near a lake like our
Well, I'm
equipment
on
is.
Clear Lake, and I spent 10,000 just to redo my patio. In 1 year, it cracked, and I have rebar going both
Really?
directions. I had them pour it an extra inch thick, so it's 4 or 5 inches thick. And in 1 year, it's cracked up. You know, it hasn't started to shift up and down,
Yeah.
but it cracked. So, you know, I just think in Minnesota, without any guarantees, we could be spending a lot of money to be back where we're at
Yeah.
in 5 or 6 years. I mean, I just don't understand what the difference is of putting footings down or direct mounting to a slab that's gonna
It's
shift.
gonna shift.
And that's not even down 4 feet.
Yeah.
I would just be very wary of putting that kind of money out without any kind of guarantees. And I don't know how you can guarantee cement in this state. It isn't gonna shift.
There's one thing, and I mean, I've seen these, DNR uses these, they're poles that go through cement,
I've got those too. They also
and
shifted.
they shifted too,
Peerless
because
foundations.
we have those also
Yeah.
at our house. and,
That's what all this was built on.
They're still
It's all
shifted
shifted. Yeah, because what they do is they have a head and then they
And it
pound
goes
the post down.
two separate ways.
Yeah,
or
and
four
for mine it goes 4 ways
Yep.
and it's still moved.
Yeah.
So, I think that you're really at a disadvantage when you're on a lake or when you have clay underneath, which I have the same situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When you have that freezing and thawing,
Yeah.
it's gonna move.
Right. Perfect. Jamie, is this just an update for today, or are we looking to take any action on this?
Not necessarily looking to take any action, just a discussion. I was just gonna quickly pull up one thing here for you.
Okay.
Just so you can kind of see this concept, and this is their sketch that they drew out, and it's, so, I mean, I can certainly pull up an aerial, but maybe just from a time perspective, it's not necessary today, but, as you can see here, this is our existing, you know, container where we have equipment. I've seen this actual piece of equipment and have played on it, and it had a lot of good play features to it, and it was busy by the kids, and I just thought it was a nice assortment of activities. I know we've talked about themed concept structures at parks, but one of the biggest things we've come back to is lacking some of the play features. Like the Dragon's fantastic and people love it, but there's the climbing net and there's the slide and a little wall climb, but that was it. So I think for Lakeside, our focus was to really have a lot that kids can be active in. The zip lines also, they've calculated a 34-foot zip line would fit in the existing structure. It's really popular. It's a lot of fun. Got to try that as well. So this was just me taking what I knew as a starting point of an idea. There's so many different pieces of equipment that you can have, and we can really fine tune that. But I thought, knowing our community and the usage down there, I thought that this would be a good starting point, knowing that, okay, this is around that $90,000 to $100,000 price point. From there, we can determine what is our budget on this project. Do we want to slim it down a little bit and whatnot? And that does include this equipment as well. So if you're walking into the park, there's this little quadrant right here. These little areas indicate just picnic table slabs right now. Otherwise, this whole space is open. This is right where that building is, right over here where Snap Fitness. So this was just an idea I thought of, trying to think outside the box or something different to just expand that area. This would be like your little 2 to 5 year old play area, and it's really close to this, obviously. So just gives that little bit of separation, but yet families that have kids of different age groups, you know, they can kind of sit tight over here and keep an eye on their 5 to 12 year old. So discussion, see if you guys like that idea. Do you guys want to try to just keep costs focusing on one container? Because obviously if we develop a new play space, obviously there's going to be a little bit more costs in getting that set up.
So the 95 isn't even including the small one on here?
It includes the equipment for that.
But then another 25,000 to install it, and then how much more to put the mulch of some sort in?
The mulch, if we just did like a loose fill like mulch, I mean, that's just you buy per square yard, and
But if you're buying the engineered chips, they're not cheap. I mean,
yeah, I know they're
you're gonna
definitely
spend thousands of dollars to fill this, right?
right. I mean, it's going to be a cost there. So we're not at that point of line item cost, you know, every single thing out, and I certainly can start that for our next meeting of getting a little bit more, you know, staff memo. I just want to make sure before I'm spending my time on something that it's the right direction. And, you know, do you still feel good about new equipment down here? Another option is just taking the existing equipment out, fixing what they need, you know, put a slab down or whatever we decide is the best fit so that we don't have this issue again, and put it back with whatever pieces need to be replaced. I mean, we don't need brand new equipment down there. That was our discussion point if we wanted to make the improvements at Lakeside Memorial Park, because it's one of our top parks. That equipment's, I believe, 11 years old now. Soon it is going to cause a safety hazard. So when you have your playground equipment and it starts shifting, you're creating different spaces that weren't intended to be there. So now you have an angle that used to be a 90-degree angle. Now it's 45, and now it's an entanglement hazard. So someone could potentially start, you could get to that point if things shift too much. So we're not there yet, but that's where we're going to be soon. So we either need to take it out, fix the surfacing, and replace any pieces that get broken in that process, primarily poles, posts, or decks, and put it back. Or like we talked about, is maybe this would be a good place to invest the money on the new equipment and move that somewhere else.
Right.
So is that
The
still?
big thing would be to just, we need those numbers though. You need it's not, like I thought originally 95 was to put it in too, but it isn't. That's just the materials, right? So then you gotta figure the another 25, then you gotta figure the mulch and everything. So, that number is pretty important. Compare that to what it would cost to pull it out, fix it, and put it back. Then you'd have a real good idea of, we need that number, I would think, to
Sure, and I guess.
know what we're trying to decide on.
So and I think that's a great point, and that's something I can get for December based on what the information I have. I can put together a document that summarizes that. Is there a budget? I mean, you guys want to talk about budget on, what do we, all included, like total cost, removing things, replacing things, surfacing? I mean, is there a number that you're comfortable with that I can use as a guide? Because maybe we don't need this much equipment, or maybe we don't separate these out.
I guess I'd like to maybe consolidate put all the 2 to 5 and 5 to 12 in the same area, and keep the green space, which we have there. That's my thought.
Jamie, what
And then
what-
remove the zip line?
And
Remove the zip line and potentially save that for like a Belts Park
Something like that,
idea
yeah.
when we get to that.
Yeah.
What is the life expectancy when they're telling you they're gonna sell you this? What are they telling you this is supposed to last?
I believe playground equipment's it can last 20, 25 years.
So we're talking, this one's half?
It's at about half, I would say. I would say 20 is probably a good estimate.
That's what I was thinking, that's what, with the
Yeah.
Anoka County parks, I think they said 18 to 20.
Yeah,
So the-
20 is probably, if you get 20 years in it, you're good. You gotten your money's worth on that.
So 10, we definitely haven't gotten our money's worth.
But we could use that,
Yeah, we can use the space,
we could take that equipment and
Yeah.
put that in another spot, so
but that's
we're
another
gaining.
25,000.
Yeah, but we're gaining the cost.
Yeah.
We're making it now instead of in 10 more years when that cost is gonna double
Yeah.
on that stuff.
Right, I mean, the prices obviously every year go up on cost of equipment. The thing that's unfortunate with this was just the fact that it shifted because of the surfacing. There are certain pieces that are under warranty, but because of this circumstance in which it was damaged, the parts were damaged, that I don't believe is warranted. So the posts, generally I believe all posts have a really long warranty, like 12 or more years, but because they shifted or potentially are damaged from, because of the.
Didn't they install it?
It was under former management. It was that company that installed it. So
So
I don't.
really,
I mean,
a
I
warranty
can
does you no
certainly.
good at all, really.
The warranty on this, I don't think is going to cover what we need.
That's
so.
what I'm saying, is a warranty, you can give a lifetime warranty, but if you sell a company, the new people in say they did it wrong, we
Yeah.
wash our hands of it. So that's what worries me about the whole thing, is you go to these people now who say they know a better way, they do it wrong again, 6 years it's busted up again. I mean, that's a lot of money when you have no
Right.
guarantees that this company isn't gonna sell to another guy, and he's not gonna wash his hands of it.
What about the company up in Wyoming?
We can certainly Accent products. They're definitely an option. So I don't recall if we have anybody on like a subcommittee, and that's fine. I can certainly keep moving on this. So Terry, do you have a comment quick here?
I was just wondering, I think what we would invest might depend upon whether or not we get that grant. So is it possible to apply for the grant? Because maybe it's 120,000 then, if we get 60, our contribution is 60, or if it's 50 and 50, or is that an option to apply for the grant and see where we're at?
So the grant, yes, it is, and I believe the grant opens. It's not open yet. I believe it opens in December. And it's a pretty extensive grant that we will still have to have a pretty good idea of line item costs, so which I'm pretty close to having, so I can certainly do that. And then I think we should apply for the grant personally, because if it's money that we can get for this project, I think that's a big win. So it's something that we know is justified. We need to do it one way or the other. It's just a matter of timing then. If the grant's due in March, I believe you find out in like June or so if you're accepted. And then I believe you can't start your projects till August. So we could potentially get it in next fall, but otherwise it would be a spring 2019 installation. And I think that we can get one more season out of this. So that's why I don't want to necessarily rush this project. I want to make sure we do it right. And this is just a starting point. So I think feedback is, generally speaking, is just focus on the one container. Don't just keep green space. Is that?
I'd like to see pricing for everything.
Pricing for everything.
I think it looks
break it
nice,
down.
but we've got 3 different areas, so we can have 3 different prices, and if the grant does not go through, well, you know what? We're only gonna spend X amount.
But why would we go through all that work to do that if we're going for 3 spaces and then we have to downsize anyways? So if we're going just for the one area, at least we'll know that it's 2 to 5 or 2 to 12-year-old area. And then that way we're going for 2 to 12, and then that other spot we don't have to worry about. It's less work that Jamie's got to do.
The only question I have, though, is if you look at those 2 spots, are they both accessible? Equally accessible for somebody who's got a disability? And
It would,
if
yeah.
they aren't, then I would like to see if that one area is more accessible than the other one. That's my only.
I'm gonna just bring up one more quick thing and then we can move on from this, because I think I know what direction you guys want me to go with, get a price on everything. Here's just I haven't had time to digest this from when I got it to the meeting time, but I'll just pull this up just to kind of show you here. A couple things. So this is a quote on essentially everything that was pictured in that piece, so you can kind of see here all the different parts and the pricing. So, I mean, it certainly is detailed. Once you pick a certain piece of equipment, they basically price out every single component of that: nuts, bolts, screws, slides, pretty much everything. So this is a 13-page quote just to kind of get me started on where we're at with pricing. So, the square deck extension, this is what it all includes, and it's pretty detailed of however many clamps and deck step ladders, things like that. So that's $1,630. So the tricky part is really picking a piece of equipment that can kind of fall within our budget. So I think I have enough direction on where I need to go from here, but this just kind of gives you an idea of what I'm gonna get for pricing. And then I'll just scroll to the bottom quick just so you can kind of see.
Yeah, I personally like the idea of writing the grant according to the vision that you kind of showed us now, whether if we go with that exact vision, whether if we go with that exact company, we can kind of figure that out in the future. But kind of, I think that's kind of a basic idea of what we're kind of looking at in that area. I mean, we'll get additional parts and some things will be moved around a little bit. My suggestion then, with December being a very busy month, potentially in January, we can either discuss options at that meeting of some ideas that we have from different providers, such as you said, Game Time and landscape structures and stuff like that. And we can kind of start looking forward to kind of coming up with a plan, a strategic plan on how we're going to replace that equipment if we decide to do so. If we remove the current equipment, what park we could bring it to. Just kind of start planning that stuff out come January. And do you know when the grant is due by? Is it due by the
It
end of
hasn't
December?
opened yet. It's generally an annual grant. I know last year it was due end of March, and I think it opens in December. So I'll check on that tomorrow to see if there's any updates on that.
Yeah.
This is so this kind of gives you an idea. If we remove the existing equipment at Lakeside Memorial Park, this is assuming that we have to replace all post decks and clamps, assuming when we take it apart they all break, which they're probably not going to, but that's the highest end. The parts are $24,000, and then installation of the new parts plus the old structure is $22,000. So really, option one is for about $50,000, taking it out, fixing the surface, which is that additional cost, and then putting it back for $50,000 plus, the concrete slab and work that would need to be done. So we could fix the issue there for $50,000 plus the concrete slab work, which I can try to get a price from them on that. And then, or, we're looking at probably like $150,000 for new equipment there,
Minus the possible grant.
minus a possible grant opportunity.
And if we want to reuse the equipment that's there, it's going to be 50 grand.
If we want to
25 grand to move it, that's what I was understanding
yeah, and I
earlier.
like I said, I think I got this late Thursday and was out Friday. I haven't digested this myself. I really wanted a discussion tonight on if I'm going the right direction. Start looking at some numbers to see, kind of gauge, should I find equipment that maybe is a little small, less threshold or price range. But yeah, so let's just say we wanted to move this to Coolin Camp. Give or take, it's going to be about $50,000 to repurpose that equipment at Coolin Camp, for example.
So
Assuming-
we're looking at a $200,000 investment.
Yeah.
And not that we're trying to save money around here. We don't have
But
any
it's
cause to save
considerably
money,
more
but
than
it's
we
a
were talking
big
when we
number.
started this conversation. So,
And is there some of the, could the Public Works take the structure down to save us a cost that way?
Yeah, and that was one recommendation, was a way to save costs would be having to be a community build project where people just basically go and unscrew the clamps and disassemble the current structure and get it into all the pieces, and then they just come and take it and relocate it.
The last 3 parks that we built in Forest Lake were all community built projects at Coolin Camp, Clear Lake Park, and at Cedar Park. So,
But I mean, just this is an assumption that they quoted all the post decks and clamps. So let's just assume maybe we only need half. I mean, that would save some money. So this would be, I think, the highest end cost for parts and labor for using, for the repurposing the existing equipment, whether we put it at Lakeside again or it's relocated. So just to kind of give you an idea, I think we can, I'll move on with, putting together some other bids. I'll get some other pieces of equipment bid out. And just, I like the idea of a January, we look at it at the January meeting to give me some time to get that organized.
Perfect.
And kind of go from there. I'll have information on the grant.
In this all,
With that,
Oh, go ahead.
do you need some help with that, Jamie?
Yeah, I'm happy to take any, it's good to get some other feedback on play structures because there's so many of them, and each of them, you kind of pick one and then they quote out all the different pieces and components to it. So just some feedback on what might be desirable would be helpful, and open for that.
this all falls under the parameters of our long-range strategic plan of knocking off our priority.
Yep, we have this Lakeside Park equipment's, I think, our next one on the list of priorities because of the potential safety concern within the next year or so. And then I know Cooling Camp was on there as one of our tier 2 priorities, being one of our top parks. And if you visit Cooling Camp, half of the equipment's really outdated. I mean, probably, I don't know the number of years, but it's been more than, let's just say getting this refurbished Lakeside Memorial Park equipment would be like a complete facelift for that. I mean, it's pretty outdated, and I know Tim knows what I'm talking about. They have some new pieces there, but if we did this one move, Coolin Camp's playground would be set to go for quite some time.
Can we repurpose those new pieces that are at Coolin Camp?
You could
Potentially, we could potentially order some new parts.
I remember we did look at that 4 or 5 years ago when I was on the park board at the time. We were talking about taking apart that equipment. It's really faded, but it can be painted professionally from one of these companies, and we could repurpose that equipment too. At least that's something that we talked about at that time. And I think the company that we worked with when we bought the equipment at Cooling Camp did look at that piece of equipment for it. And I don't know if Jamie will have any additional information on that. That
I
was
haven't
quite a while ago.
personally.
That was 2013 or so.
Yeah, I personally haven't researched the equipment too greatly at Cooling Camp, just knowing that it's pretty, I mean, the roof's faded, but I do know some of that's just ordering a new part if we wanted to just try to make it improved, some improvements there, so.
Well, if it's not salvageable, don't waste your time, but if there are some components that are super salvageable and it makes sense,
Yeah.
just something to consider.
I will definitely check into that too. So I will, for our January meeting, get some more information, plan to see this again, and then I'll connect with Jason in the meantime so we can try to narrow down maybe a couple options for different price ranges for equipment so we can make a better educated decision on how to spend the funds
Perfect.
and pursue that grant.
Awesome. Wonderful. All right. Next on our list is the Forest Lake Lions Park donation.
All right, so Chair and members of the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, earlier this year, we accepted a donation from the Forest Lake Lions in the amount of $7,500 for park equipment. And since then, we haven't solidified our decision on how to spend those dollars. So bringing it to the Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission tonight for a discussion on if there's any feedback. I do know we have some members of our commission that are also Forest Lake Lions members, so I'm just looking for some input and direction on how to move this forward, if there's a certain expectation or if we can really decide however we want to allocate that funding. Again, $7,500, and it was vague as just park equipment. So from a city perspective, I know we also can't carry over funding generally unless we have a special request, so it would be something that would need to be purchased in the very near future or made a determination of the funding going to a certain project. So one idea I brought up was, would the Forest Lake Lions be open to claiming the pavilion at Cedar Park as something that they've sponsored and donated and put their logo emblem up on that pavilion. Obviously, we've paid for it already, but we have labor and pouring a concrete slab and things of that nature with additional costs. So is that something the Forest Lake Lions would be interested in? I know that's a question for them, but just wanted to see if anybody else from a Parks, Trails, Lakes Commission standpoint has any opinions or feedback on how, or ideas on how we would like to allocate that funding. So with that, I'll turn it over for any comments or feedback.
Is there a long-term goal that the Lions will end up having a Lions Park?
I believe that is a desired piece of this discussion. And I think that's a discussion, and with that piece, I think it's more time consuming than let's just pick a park and start going with it. You know, I think that's a strategic plan. I know we had talked about Cedar Park wouldn't be a great one because people call it Dragon Park. You know, I don't think that would work well. And we know Belts Park has some family ties and history to it. So what would be a good park for a Lions Park? One, needs to be identified. And then two, where do we start with, you know, improvements there?
Yeah, because right now we have a sign down at Lakeside that Lions something. And then we're talking about a pavilion at Cedar, Lions something, sponsorship. I think it's wonderful that the Lions are willing to step up, but hey, let's make it a park. Then we get that stream going, that partnership.
Does anybody have any other ideas on parks that would be in consideration? I mean, I know the few that I think of as our top parks are most utilized. I just don't know that they're able to be converted into a Lions Park in time. You know, I mean, I know we talked about Belts Park as probably being that best option, and I think Tim has done some research on the family history there, and I don't know if that would work out from that standpoint. You know, obviously Lakeside Memorial or Coolin Camp, you know, those aren't changing to Lions Park. So do we make not as utilized park a Lions Park and turn it into something great that way? That's an idea. So I guess I'm just kind of at a loss on this one of, you know, I'm very fortunate for the donation, but it's important to me that it's meets Forest Lake Lions expectations, and I haven't been very involved in that conversation because of how that process went. So just seeing if anyone has any input or thoughts on that. And if not, I'll just reach out to the Forest Lake Lions and work with them directly. But it's just an opportunity to give anyone some final discussion points on it.
I think it's an opportunity to look for a piece of equipment that, I don't know if you caught on to the fact that I'm really passionate about people that making sure that all kids are included with the ability to play and have access to equipment. And when I think about the Lions and some of the programs that are sponsored through the Lions, I think this is an opportunity to look at an inclusive piece of equipment someplace. I think the park discussion is a much bigger discussion, and along with that will come whether or not the Lions are interested in continuing to invest in the park systems and what that looks like and what that means, I think, on both sides. But in the interim, if we have this money and it has to be invested in this fiscal year, I think that is one option, is to look at a piece of equipment that allows everybody to be able to play and participate.
Yep, I like that idea.
Can we get something like that for $7,500?
Yeah, I guess that's exactly kind of the feedback I was looking for. So with that, I mean, there's pieces like this that if it's just purchasing a piece of equipment, I can get the price on something like this fairly quickly. And from your feedback, it sounds like this would be a good investment, and it doesn't necessarily matter where it goes right now, because obviously we can put it in a park and relocate it. That's not a significant amount of work. If somewhere way down the road we do end up with a Lions Park and whatnot, but is this what you're kind of referring to, like a piece of equipment that would?
Yep, and I think we need to look at, I think about Lakeside Park, that's pretty high traffic area. I think about Arts in the Parks and people that attend that with their families, and is there the ability to put a piece of equipment in a place like that where there is more activity, there's more family and community events, where there will be more people that would maybe have the opportunities to use that equipment with their families.
So I think that kind of gives me what we need, because right now the equipment that's there is going to be there for a little while. I mean, at least through potentially spring. And right now there's a space open in that existing container at Lakeside Memorial Park where we had a teeter-totter that broke. So there's a pretty big open space right now that would accommodate something like this immediately, meaning as soon as we could get it purchased and installed.
At which
They
park
already
did
do
you say?
have the Forest Lake Lions recognition there at Lakeside Memorial Park, so a piece like this isn't as extensive to, like, if down the road in 5 years or whatever, we needed to relocate that's not a significant project. So, I mean, does it seem like from commission standpoint, if we could find a piece of equipment for around the $7,500, go forward with something like that and potentially look at Lakeside Memorial Park in that existing space? Because there's definitely room for something like this there.
I believe so.
Would everyone feel comfortable with that?
It's a good idea.
I'd agree.
And I think $7,500 is probably going to cover something like this within reason. If if we're within, like, give or take, or let's just say we need to chip in $1,000 extra. I mean, is there any reservations if we have room in our existing budget for that?
Right, I think that should
Parks
be fine.
Commission, that's any feedback on that?
If we decide in December the piece of equipment we're going to get, I'm guessing that would have to be a recommendation to the city council. I don't know if there will be a city council meeting after our meeting in December to try to get this processed before.
Don't you already have? the
We don't need city
Yeah.
council approval.
Oh, you won't?
No, it's I think the threshold is it's much higher than that, and we have the funding already in our account, and it's, if the difference, like, let's just say with tax or delivery, it's $8,000. I mean, the 500 extra would just come from our maintenance budget, which we don't need approval on. It's already an approved budget. So I guess I could really potentially just work with Terry or whoever's interested in solidifying. I can send an email out to the commission, and maybe we can just go through if there's a piece that you guys like and here's the price. Just knowing that I have a little flexibility if we go a slight bit over that, but that's something that I can get purchased within the next week or two.
Wonderful.
It's a matter of just sending in an order. They'll ship it to us, and then we can install it in the spring.
Awesome.
And
Everyone's-
then
any
if
other-
there is an opportunity for the Lions to be part of after it's installed, if there is an opportunity for them to see this piece of equipment and what we've got, not to approve it, but after it's installed to just know how that investment has been turned around for the better of the community, that would be
Yeah,
good.
absolutely.
For sure.
Any other comments or feedback? Otherwise, I'll focus my efforts on getting a piece of inclusive playground equipment purchased with the intent at Lakeside Memorial Park for now.
Perfect. Are you gonna go forward with purchasing it, or will it come back to us for approval of the piece?
I would like to go forward with purchasing it because of our timeline, because generally, what's that, Tim?
You said something about sending out.
I can send an email
something
just
that
to,
shows some different.
I don't need formal approval because it's nothing that would require city council approval or necessarily even Parks Commission approval. It's all within, 7,500 was, donation. And then if there's any extra, it just comes out of our maintenance budget.
Oh, maintenance, okay, perfect.
So it wouldn't come out of our park dedication. I don't need any city, formal approvals. It's just more of, I want you guys to be aware of what's going on and what I'm purchasing. If that's okay with everybody from a
Yes.
commission standpoint.
So would we need anything, do you think we'd need anything more than 500? Do you think we'd need up to,
I'll know tomorrow. I'm going to make some calls tomorrow. Actually, I take that back because it's a short day with the holiday coming up because I forget that Thanksgiving's on Thursday. So early next week I will know, but I don't anticipate, I'm hopeful that we can get it for within that price range.
Wonderful. All right. Perfect. Moving on to Southview Park Playground Equipment Removal.
All right, so this evening we also are going to talk about Southview Playground Park Equipment Removal. I think some of us have toured Southview Park. It's got equipment that's probably 25, 30 years old at least. The fall protection is sand, which isn't the best form of fall protection, and it's not really utilized, and it's tucked away, and it just becomes a source of vandalism. And so tonight, looking to I'll let Tim maybe speak on this, but I think looking for an approval to remove the equipment, which Public Works staff would do this winter season. And I believe Tim would like to, I think the
Yeah.
recommendation is to have it removed and not repurposed.
Right. So, a few times in the last few years, I try to go to all the parks, and if I see a neighbor outside their house where they have a park right next door, I kind of ask, hey, do you see people use this park? You know, do you have children that use it? Anything like that. And I do that with all of our parks quite a bit, a few times a year. Some of the neighbors who I saw to this park had no idea the park was there. It is so tucked away behind all the homes. So there's you can kind of see it's so tucked away down this little path that's in the woods. It's completely hidden. Kind of to where the park is. I feel like the fall protection is sand. A lot of it's just overgrown weeds throughout the park. The border around it's plastic that's pretty badly broken up. If someone were to trip and fall into it, I feel like it could be a safety hazard. All the bolts on all the connections to everything is kind of rusted apart. The vandalism that's been on there has been there for at least since I've been here for quite a while. I'd say probably 10 years or so. I believe the development, when that park was put in, the development was created in 1993 to 1995. And that's the Glenbrook area right behind McCullough's. I know Jack and we kind of talked about trying to eventually create that as a natural preserve, possibly something we could give to the watershed district in exchange for something else in the future. So my personal opinion is just to remove this park equipment. All those footprints you see there, I couldn't find one human footprint. Those are all deer prints. Every single one of them.
I was gonna say, it looks like there's activity there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're all deer prints. I looked very closely. I couldn't find
Understand
one
that back
shoe
one.
print at all. I don't see this park being used. There are 5 parks. No, yeah, 5 parks within a mile from this one. Bixby Preserve, Belts, Bayview. So 4, but I'm, within a mile from this one, and I think this is a good one to consider to remove, and then we look at preserving this as a natural area and look to kind of collaborate with either watershed district or someone in the future on this. So I'll make the recommendation to remove the Southview Park playground equipment and to dispose of all the items excluding the Eagle Scout project that was built there. And it's like a chimney.
Van house.
Yeah. Excluding that piece, but all other places, all other pieces, making it turning it into just a preserved area.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion or
Will the
questions?
sand be removed too? And then the underlying soil be seeded to, say, maybe get a prairie restoration mix?
Do you think it would be good to remove the sand, or do you think you could spread out the sand or move the sand to a different spot on the lot?
And it's gonna be hard to grow anything in that neutral of a
Right.
soil. And it's gonna be
Except
dry.
weeds.
Yeah,
That's all it's gonna
weeds.
grow there is weeds.
I don't know what the depth is, I don't know what the subsoil is, but if you leave it like that, it's gonna look like.
You're gonna wanna remove all that
Yeah, you wanna get
edging
rid of
too,
it.
so then you're
Yeah.
gonna have to do something with the sand. I'm sure that Public Works probably could use the sand somewhere.
Can you move the sand to Lakeside?
Yeah.
There you
Not
go.
legally, do that at night.
I would include in my motion to remove the sand, yes, or to diminish the amount of sand that's there. I mean, maybe they could spread some of it out. Kind of just Public Works can kind of determine what they need to do to.
I'd
you know,
have it removed
to
and
make that.
overseed it, because if they spread it out, then you're gonna get little dry pockets here and
I
there.
understand.
Yeah, you're gonna wanna get rid of it.
Yeah, get
Okay,
rid of it and
yeah.
overseed it with a prairie blend mix.
Perfect. So I just amended my motion to also remove the sand,
Second.
and Jason amends his second. Any other questions or discussion on this?
Think there's any little towns up north that would wanna come down and take this out themselves and put it up in their park that they don't have any money for? I mean, just looking at it, I would think that some little town would maybe come down and take it away.
Yeah,
You know, I don't know.
And I definitely considered that. I mean, when we removed Clear Lake Park, I was told that it was in rough shape. It can't be used anymore. And it was removed and then thrown away. However, Forest Hills Methodist Church received the park and they built it in their backyard. So if you drive by that church, you'll see that yellow and blue playground by their parking lot, and that was Clear Lake Park 4 years ago.
I would say some little town up north would be happy to, you know, if they could get a hold of something like this. I don't know how you'd find them, but I'm just,
Yeah, I think there's legal implications. I mean, we have to dispose of it, and
oh,
you know, I think we couldn't give it away necessarily
away.
because I think of legal implications on that. But I mean, it is a valid point that if people were aware of it and it was in a dumpster, that's a different story if someone takes it from the dumpster.
Right. Yep. So
Great swing set.
there you go.
When are they pulling it?
We haven't voted yet.
Yeah, we haven't
Yeah.
voted yet.
This winter.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose, abstain, and that passes. All right, wonderful. Next will be the park event permit, May 19th, 2018.
All right, so the last regular agenda item this evening is a fairly quick one. We do have our first park event permit for 2018. It's a wedding for May 19th. I included the information in the packet. It's a small ceremony at the gazebo. I believe it was like 25 to 40 people without looking at it here. And staff recommendation is just formal approval to issue a permit for their park event permit for the use of the gazebo for a wedding on May 19th, 2018, which is a Saturday. I did want to note that with the early graduation this year, potentially fall on our Lake Fest date, but we are strongly considering moving the Lake Fest to a different date and time, so there shouldn't be any scheduling conflicts, but that is a Saturday, May 19th. So seeking approval for their permit.
I make the motion to approve the permit.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Jamie, I just want to confirm kind of what you just said. You said you do not believe Lake Fest will be happening on that weekend.
Correct.
I guess this kind of confirms it won't happen on that
I
weekend.
don't think it won't be that weekend.
Okay, perfect.
I'm on the Lake Fest planning committee, so it won't be that weekend.
Okay,
We haven't had any conversations about May 19th at this point, so.
okay, perfect. All right, take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose, abstain, and that passes. All right, next will be Park and Recreation Coordinator updates, Fenway Park maintenance.
All right, so just a couple quick updates. I'm gonna make these quick so we can get, wrap up our meeting here. Fenway Park maintenance, city staff, myself with city administrator Aaron Parrish met with the FLA executive board last week, Wednesday, and just to provide an update on where we're at with the maintenance responsibilities at Fenway Park. The city did lead in a closed bid session where we received 6 bids from contractors. The city staff has begun to review those and have followed up with some additional questions. Update tonight is just that the FLA executive board is open to the option 2 that we have discussed as a group as well, which, as a reminder, states that the city continues an agreement with FLA, our management agreement, but instead of utilizing Blue Diamond for the maintenance, they would have to use a new maintenance company. So that is something they're very receptive to. Next steps include myself meeting with a couple members of this FLA executive board next week after Thanksgiving to see what other questions they might have, or just work with them a little bit more on some of the needs that they have from a maintenance standpoint, because we don't have those records from Blue Diamond on how many mows and when they need mowing and some of those needs. And then just the update for Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission is there's a joint workshop scheduled for December 11th at 6 p.m. And that will be City Council, Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission, and the FLA Executive Board. And at that meeting, that would give everybody the opportunity together to express any opinions, concerns, thoughts, feedback on selecting a maintenance provider. And I think the ultimate goal is kind of December, January to have a plan in place for next year. And at this point, it doesn't appear as if we'll need to amend our agreement. We may or may not, and that's just some things you'll want to think about as we approach that joint workshop December 11th. It's a Monday at 6 p.m. So I hope that works for most or all of you. That's the date that's been set. That kind of works with City Council and the other executive board. It's not mandatory, but obviously, if you know, we'd like Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission representation at that workshop.
Wonderful.
Any comments or questions for me on this?
I got a little comment
Yes.
about the Fenway Park, because it's been misconstrued that I sort of lambasted the FLA Association. I feel a little bit bad about that. I asked the question, what does FLA do best? And I should have followed up, what do they do best? And let's focus on what they do very, very well and move forward from that point. I did go back and investigate what FLA does, and it's a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting and participating in the positive development of youth in the North Metro. Kudos, fantastic. I think that is exceptional. Again, it's unfortunate that my question of their integrity bruised a few egos, but I feel we should really focus on what we do best and move forward from this point going on.
Perfect.
And thank you, Forest Lake Area Athletic Association, for what you do for our youth. Because without you, I don't know of another group that would be doing that right now. So it's much appreciated.
For sure.
Thank you. Any other comments, thoughts?
Just some clarification. At our December meeting on December 19th, will we be deciding any agreement or having any further discussion on our meeting from the 11th? Or does that kind of determine what we talk about on the 11th?
I think our December meeting, it'll be talked about in some capacity. I think right now, I don't know what we'll be discussing, if it's an approval of anything. I really think we need to see how this December 11th meeting goes. I think December 11th, everyone kind of puts anything out on the table of questions, concerns, whether or not a certain maintenance company should be there, if it's an amended agreement, and if it's an amended agreement, what changes or additions you would recommend seeing in there. I know we've looked at the agreement a little bit more closely since over the last few months. So I think those are things that would come back to Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission. So if it's an option 2 and a new maintenance provider is selected, does it give us the opportunity, or would you want to amend our Fenway management agreement to have a little more checks and balances in there of, FLA would still then potentially manage that relationship with the new contractor. I think that's a discussion piece for the workshop. So really, I don't know what will come to the December 19th meeting, but something likely on having an opportunity. Really, Parks, Trails, and Lakes Commission has the opportunity to make a recommendation to City Council. So if you guys at that point, based on the 11th workshop, whatever comes of that, if you feel strongly that you want an amended agreement, that's something you certainly can do and make a recommendation to council that it should be amended, and here's what the changes should be. So it's kind of to be determined once we get through that workshop.
Wonderful. All right. Next will be dredging at Lakeside Memorial Park.
So just a brief update on this we can talk about at our December meeting with some more information. The company Cold Stone that we've been working with on bids for this dredging at Lakeside Memorial Park project, he did come back to me. He did initially, we were told $25,000 to dredge the dock at Lakeside Memorial Park. We were also told $10,000 if we did it in the winter months when there's ice, because they don't need to have as much equipment. As I've been following up with this over the last month or two, they came back, had talked to some people in Michigan and got some other opinions that they feel that they really need to rent a big excavator, and the rental cost for that piece of equipment is $15,000 for a month. Obviously, the project wouldn't take a month, but that's the rate to do it. The other additional $10,000 is in labor, so we're looking at $25,000 regardless of the time of the year that we do this project, potentially do this project. So it's an update in the fact that it's not gonna just be the $10,000 if we do it in the winter.
Plus, won't the city be hauling the
Correct.
materials? So it's, there's a plus
There's a
involved here.
plus that I haven't calculated yet because we've still been so undecided on this project. So it's a hefty expense and it's an update, and I think, if you have any comments on it tonight or email, that you want to get back to me on, it's just, I think we need to figure out if it's something that the city's willing to invest in doing. I know Jack and I have been out there and we're wondering, can we extend the dock? Do we, does your boat club have the same issues? Because people are utilizing the docks in the summer, and are they really having a lot of issues, or is it a select few? Is it really impeding on use at the park from a boat access point? So I think it's a big expense, and the update is it's $25,000 regardless of when we do it. So that might change people's opinions on the feasibility of the project or not, so.
I don't know if you recall, but I brought this up when it was first brought up, but we did that. We brought a big track
Yeah.
in, we did the dredging because we had people complaining about over on Centerville, or Peltier, on Peltier. And we did it in the fall, and the next spring, before the opening season, it had filled back in. And lakes put themselves back. They know what they're gonna put the sand in the spots where, so I don't know how long they say they're gonna give you for this, but I don't think there's any way they can guarantee it. And if they can't guarantee it, and we put 25,000 into it, and in a year or less, it's back to shallow. It's not something we're gonna do over and over again.
Right.
But I don't think that if you check into it with engineers, that's what I mentioned last time, engineers can tell you that that's what's gonna happen when you dig that out. It's gonna slough back in. And the lake, when the wind is blowing from the wrong direction, it's gonna bring in that shallow sand right back into that hole. So I just think it's a waste of money myself.
Yeah, I'll get a comment. I'll check in with our city engineer. I haven't done that part, and I remember you said that, just to kind of get a second opinion on the feasibility of it. Is it a good use of funding? Is it gonna, if there is no guarantee, that is a lot of money to invest in the project, not knowing how long you're gonna get results for. And maybe it's our next meeting, I'll bring that information and we either make a decision yes or no and move on from there. Or maybe it's no and we figure out a different solution, whatever we decide. But that's the update. It is going to be at least the $25,000 for that project.
I'd agree. The lake will find its way back.
They always do.
The only thing that a person could possibly do is dig out the boat launch to make a deeper drop off
So they don't power load?
so they don't power load.
Because power loading is part of the
That's where you're getting the problem
They're pushing
from.
up the sand where it gets,
We could do that, or maybe add an extension to a dock.
Or a big pipe to the Mississippi River and raise that lake.
all right.
Do we have
I'm
any
sorry.
ordinances in Forest Lake about power loading boats, or is that something that we could consider in the future, or asking the
can't
city
stop it.
council?
That's
Can't
the problem.
stop it.
Most of
It's
the
an
bass boats-
enforcement part.
Most of the bass boats, they don't even have roller trailers.
No, it's
They're
all
gonna
bunk.
power load.
Yep.
And if you got a shallow situation like that, it's terrible over on Clear too. You step, off the landing and you go up to your neck because it's everybody power loading. And then
Yeah.
all that sand goes
Well-
up behind you.
And then when we do the boat races, I mean, they're all on. I think we could do something to the boat launch itself.
They have signage all over in Oka County. It doesn't stop
Yeah.
it,
No, make a deeper
Yeah.
hole or something
Yeah.
in there,
Okay.
but not dredge.
Right. Can you follow up with Mr. Freed on some of your discoveries and kind of where we as a park commission are looking at this, saying that we'll consider looking at the boat launch design? We kind of feel like dredging is potentially not a good fit right now because we have no guarantee and we have proof that it hasn't worked in the past for other people.
Yeah, I've been
Just
in
to kind of
communication with
follow
him,
up
but
with
I'll give him an update from tonight, just kind of that feedback on what we've said before, and, you know, we've continued to pursue it, but with this new cost structure, and, yeah, I'll be happy to give them an update and see how we can at least try to work with them on some other
Might be
options.
worth talking to Dave too, at the Public Works, to find out how much it would cost his, the removal. You gotta put it somewhere, and since there's zebra mussels in that stuff, I don't imagine a lot of places want it.
Yeah, I can check with
Have to
him.
haul
I know
that.
it's several loads
Oh,
of
man,
a
I bet
truck.
it'd be 100.
And I know there was an approved location in the former permit. It was, I can't remember the location, but there was an approved area to dispose of the materials, but I don't know the distance from Lakeside Memorial Park, and,
He would be able to
Yeah,
get
so
a
I mean,
number
I
on
can-
that, which would give us, another,
yeah, I mean,
Piece
it's
of
a
the puzzle.
significant, not only, I mean, it's the labor and the hours to do that for staff time.
Fuel, wear and tear on equipment.
Yeah,
yeah, but I don't know how wide they were thinking of going, but if you just go where the dock is, see if it won't even take a year to
Yeah,
fill that
yeah,
back up.
yeah.
Just good wave action will do that.
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Next, Parks, Trails, Lakes Commissioner updates.
I just added this on the, something I know city council does, if any, it gives everyone an opportunity if you had anything else additional to share, so it's just, if not, we can move on and be done, otherwise if anyone has any other comments or thoughts, updates on what you've been doing or involvement or whatnot, so,
Yeah, anyone have any updates?
Pickleball closed for the season?
yes.
Wonderful.
And is there a hard date for the closure on that, or is it just,
We did it in conjunction,
Please, won't they go back and play? I mean, I would think if it's 50 on Friday, there might be people out there.
we took the nets down already, we winterized it.
Oh, okay. that's
Yeah,
what it
so we did that in conjunction just with general park closure, which is the middle of October. Not a firm date every year. We extended it out one extra week because mid-October was 60s and 70s still, so. But nets got taken down. We worked with them on it was the first week in November.
okay. How about the windscreens? Did they?
We kept those up
Well-
right now. It's still something we've talked about, myself with Public Works, on after the tree lighting, if we want to take those down, and they have a little more availability coming up here in the near future, so.
Well, they don't have to take them down completely.
Right, zip
They
tie
just
them and
cut off
roll them to
strip
the middle.
On top and on the bottom and roll them up, yeah.
Yeah, so I talked to them about that, and I'll follow up with you too, just to see if, I think it's something we should be able to do after Thanksgiving.
Really easy.
Yeah, so, but yes, they're closed, done, pretty successful season, and I got a list of 13 items for next year.
Yeah, well, cool. I would encourage everyone to go to the park, Lakeside Park tree lighting this coming Sunday. What are the times of that again, Jamie?
3:30 till 5:30 p.m.
Okay, 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. Wonderful. Also do want to announce Kathy Schulte did resign her position on the Parks Lakes Trails Commission. She served for quite a few years, and I know she's kind of missed the last handful of months of meetings. She's been pretty busy personally. I did talk to Jamie about that. They're going to post that hopefully on the Forest Lake website soon, that we'll be looking for another park member. So
Do you want a replacement, or do you have to post it? Because I know CJ Carlson was looking, or was going to pursue that opportunity.
how does that work, Jamie?
Our deputy clerk manages appointments with the mayor, and we've just gone through some new staffing within that department, or with our deputy clerk, so there's a little transitional period right now that it's been on the radar, and we'll get that position posted. But what happens is applications that come in would go to the deputy clerk, and then those get forwarded on for review and consideration from city council, from our mayor. So I will double check. They're aware of that. I don't know what the process is beyond that of selecting an urgency or whatnot, but they know we have some vacancies, or we'll have that vacancy to fill.
Also, at the end of 2017, we will have 2 additional vacancies on the board, is that correct? And who would
Kathy
those be?
Schulte, and she had a 2-year term, which expires at the end of this year. So she's served for almost the 2 years.
I see.
Just had some changes with her scheduling since she signed up, and she just wanted to be fully committed. And if she's not able to, with missing meetings with travels and whatnot. So, and then I think Jim Blake's is up at the end of this year.
Are you gonna renew?
I don't believe so.
Oh, why not? Come on,
I
Jim.
don't think I would get, past the mayor.
Well, we'll see. All right. Any other questions or discussion tonight? If not, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, looking for a second.
Second.
All right. No discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, and that passes. Have a great night. We'll see you at the tree
Happy
lighting.
Thanksgiving.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.